Every once in a while, I'd still sometimes throw on some earrings and a dress and go to a party at some embassy or other and chat with the bureaucrats, the wives, the rising young couples. But I learned nothing. Really nothing beyond the obvious fact that half the high officials were in their 20s now.
Eventually, I realized there wasn't any hope. An important insight. There'd be no happiness in my own life, nor would peace be won in the world at large. Was there anything, then, that I could expect to achieve in the coming years? Well, perhaps I could learn how to train my mind to focus less compulsively on terrifying images of death and disease. Maybe I could learn to pass more easily from one moment to the next, the way the monkey, our ancestor, shifts so easily along from branch to branch as he follows the high road through the forest at night. Let me learn how to repose in the shade of a nice square of chocolate, a nice slice of cake. A delicious cup of tea isn't perhaps that hard to come by. The trick to be learned is just not to think of other things while you drink it.
The radio broadcast some absurd message. There were to be some new people in high positions, some new policies, all very vague, but from the tone of it, you knew it was going to be bad. Everyone was talking on the telephone all day, and most of the old friends, the ones who were left, wanted to come over to the house. We knew we wanted to be together. Father got inspired and decided to cook. So that afternoon around 5, they all came, shambling through the courtyard into the garden, to stand once again under the stiff little trees with their frozen buds. The sky was gray. The breeze was icy. Mary was there, and Herbert, and Arthur, Bob, and Sam. Sam brought a jar of Indian chutney, which made a nice compliment to Father's meat. As dusk fell in the garden, we could hear these really extraordinary sounds. You know, the boom of explosions and very loud shots. We knew they were nearer than they'd ever been before. Still we sat at the garden table, or strolled near it, eating the meal that Father had prepared. The odor of the flowers was peculiarly strong, as if their last drops of perfume were being squeezed out in the knowledge that no one would be able to smell them later. No one ate much, but we all ate something. Finally, as the sounds of shooting grew louder, we all drifted inside. It was pure mindless instinct. A light, almost invisible drizzle had begun, so we pretended to ourselves that we simply were going inside to keep dry. There were ominous, silent flashes, a bluish tint to the air, and the dusk deepened. Inside, we all stood in the kitchen, moving unnaturally slowly and quietly, no one standing too close to anyone else. "Listen," Bob said. We all listened, and we heard birds approaching, flapping, an almost equestrian sound, sort of like the proverbial thunder of hooves. "Well," Father said, "I'm not exactly known as a superstitious man, but surely the appearance at such a time of such an enormous crowd of birds. And then no one spoke for a long time, each one just shifting his weight from foot to foot in his own little circle. I suddenly got a terrible cramp in my stomach, and I leaned over and I opened my mouth, and light seemed to pour out of it onto the ground. I could feel, as if it were happening to me, the penis of every man in the room slowly starting to rise. I was crouched over, close to the ground, surrounded by a forest of men, each with a branch at the groin sticking sharply up. And then with a crack, the rain was suddenly beating down on the garden, rattling wildly at the windows. And after a little time, through the roar of the rain, I heard the sound of breaking glass, as if bottles were being thrown and broken, and the grinding gears of a truck pulling up, stopping in the driveway just where the milkman's truck always used to stop. Would they ring the bell like the milkman always used to do, to give us the bill? We drifted into the living room. Arthur sat in a chair, so did Mary, Herbert, and their bodies sort of slowly curled up in the chairs. Their expressions really were just of waiting, a little bit puzzled, sort of like patients sitting in their pajamas in hospitals. Then there were sounds of commotion in the garden. At first, no one even went to the window to find out what was happening. I finally did, though, and in the darkness and the rain, the light from the house picked out a few spots I could see on the lawn. A patch of flowers, some dishes, food. Then by the table where we'd all had our meal, I saw a dead person lying. An old man, his skull had been crushed. He was lying in the mud, face downward, the rain pouring over him, the inside of his head washing out onto the lawn.